Okay. Hi, everyone. It's
Morning.
good to see you all. Ah, sweet. Yeah, we've got a really beautiful movie for everyone today that I think my hope is that it will touch you all as much as it's touched both of us. And yeah, I think honestly what feels really fresh about this movie is that I see myself, at least, in one of the characters of this movie, the main character, like quite a lot in a way that I haven't before. This is, when all is said and done, a very beautiful relationship movie. We're not going to get so much into romantic relationship. This is a relationship between a father and a daughter, primarily, and then also the relationship between two friends. And what makes this movie a little bit different is that from the world's eyes, the main character, Sam, suffers from an intellectual disability. So he's not so um, fast with things like addition, counting up change in a grocery store. Like, he doesn't really understand much of what the world would say is the bare minimum that you need to understand in order to function in the world. But what he doesn't have in terms of those skills and abilities, he more than makes up for by really paying attention to his feelings and not compromising, actually, on speaking, communicating, and he's just really quite intuitive in a very natural way. So this, yeah, it's really beautiful how I think this movie is really going to point to something that the world doesn't really pay much attention to. Just kind of that ability to be intuitive and feel into situations, even though you don't really understand necessarily the specifics or the things that the world says you need to understand in order to analyze the situation properly, break it down, figure out the best option. So, um, yeah, this is probably quite a lot of hints, but if you haven't figured it out already, the movie for today is I Am Sam. And it's you know, there's a beautiful relationship between Sam and his daughter, first of all, that is based on that feeling of love, that feeling of trust. And then, it doesn't really matter so much to Sam or his daughter, the difference in intellectual ability. Sam has been tested, and it seems like he's basically about at the level of a 7-year old, intellectually. And Lucy is 7 right now. So there are certain things that she actually knows how to do more than Sam. And obviously they both have their healing with that, where you'll see certain situations play out where Lucy doesn't want to read a complicated word because she doesn't want to know something if Sam doesn't know. And, Sam has the guilt and fear that washes through, but that's not really the focus of the movie. The focus is really on the love between them and how that can kind of pull them through every seeming situation that they encounter, one after the other. It's just all you need is love, as the Beatles would say. That's really all that's important in the situation. And then the other kind of sparkly relationship in the movie is you'll see that Sam very early on in the movie gets into a bit of trouble with Child Protective Services. These guys are not thinking that he is capable of raising his daughter by himself. So Sam needs to hire a lawyer to get Child Protective Services to see that what they're thinking is important in raising a daughter is not important at all. And yeah, I kind of feel like that's a beautiful relationship that's highlighted in the movie between Sam and this kind of high-powered lawyer called Rita. And yeah, it's almost like it's a contrast experience in one way in the movie where the lawyer Rita is very intellectual and needs things to be a certain way and very precise and kind of has a few rough edges as well. And Sam's just like butter. He's like, oh, he just loves her, even though he's seeming to get these reflections of like sharpness back from her. But it's not anything to do with who they are. It's just that they're valuing different things in the moment, and the whole movie is just kind of a gradual, like, Sam gets a little bit more firm and a little bit more able to take unexpected knocks to himself, and Rita kind of softens and softens and softens, which is, I think, the main dynamic that we want to kind of highlight in relation to our main theme today, which is relaxing into true connection. And yeah, I mean, when I think about relaxing into true connection, the word that kind of stands out to me a little bit is relaxing, where it's like the true connection is arrived at through this state of open-mindedness and non-judgment and peace, actually, that Sam demonstrates in the movie. You can't really be truly connected by using these concepts, or concepts that in many cases Sam and Rita don't really have a meeting point for because of Sam's intellectual disability. So
maybe I could share a little bit too about Rita has a set of dynamics that's like totally opposite from Sam. And so I think that's where we were kind of inspired. Like this has been a very present experience for us. Like normally the last few movies have been kind of on this very inspiring vibe and like, yeah, really go for it and lots of communication, and this movie, by contrast, when it came in, it felt very, very right to share, because it's so present for us. Like Zach was saying, a lot of the dynamics, or like even just this beautiful gentleness, I feel, are displayed in Zach quite a lot. And so the spirits paired up these complementary ego dynamics so that Sam can experience this, as you were saying, like a sharpening, or getting into a little bit more of a firmness, being a little bit more clear about how to go for the things that the spirit actually wants to give him. And Rita, by contrast, is going to experience this softening. And we're going to see kind of how, or like what's underneath the dynamics that they've been playing out. As they come closer and closer together, those beliefs have to inevitably rise to the surface because the Holy Spirit is bringing this beautiful light into their hearts through their collaboration. So probably Probably it's obvious, but for myself, I think Rita stands out a bit more to me as the one that I can relate to. With yeah, like she's this high-powered lawyer, which is the perfect way to describe her. High-powered, she's extremely fast-paced, focused on the form and the logistics of things, and in that way, Sam's beautiful gift with putting his heart out front and focusing on the relationships is going to really rock Rita's world, actually, because there's a lot of things that she has deep in her heart that feel important to her, but she doesn't know how to get to. And so, yeah, just the orchestration of them being brought together in this relationship towards holiness is the dynamics or the no, the demonstration is so clear. Yeah, it's very beautiful. And actually in that with Rita going through this softening and to a different degree or in a different way, Sam, some of the other things we were very inspired to share about are like the themes of letting go of unworthiness as they both come closer into a truer connection and deeper prayer, coming into this deeper prayer and relaxing away from what they actually feel the problems are. Like with Sam, we'll see that there's a control dynamic. Like he's pretty set in his ways with like the self-concept of having what the world would call this intellectual disability. There's kind of a rigidity to the way that he does things. And Rita's there to kind of knock him about a bit, to use the phrase Zach was just using. And yeah, so for him, it's going to be like a relaxing away from some of the control that's there, but he doesn't really have that consciously in awareness. Whereas for Rita, it's going to be the same thing, but it's going to just look a bit different. But that was kind of part of the magic of what we saw as we were going through it these last few days, is just that actually the core belief is the same. There's an unworthiness in the mind, and that actually needs to be accessed through all the shifting circumstances and situations that will flush that into awareness. And then once that has actually been seen and released, then this real connection just blossoms.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that kind of leads beautifully into another theme as well that we kind of felt really good about, which is this deepening in true prayer. And, kind of the interesting thing about that is you can't really get to your true prayer, or, I guess another way of saying that would be what you truly want, because the Course says that prayer is desire. So, you can't really get to what you truly want until you kind of take the desire off these kind of smaller things that seem to be right in front of you playing out in the world. And I do feel like a lot of what you're going to see in the movie, like the softening process, is just both Sam and Rita getting clear on what they want and not kind of biting the bait of like, oh, I don't want the softening, or I'm going to kind of protect myself. I want it this way. You'll see kind of one scene sort of more in the middle of the movie where Sam gets very bent out of shape because they don't have the type of pancakes that he wants at his diner. And so it's like, it seems to Sam to be about like, no, why are you telling me that you can't make my pancakes the way that I want them? But really, it's like there's stuff going on underneath that needs to come out, and the real softening, or the deepening in true prayer, happens kind of naturally when all these kind of distractions and things that split the desire into many pieces that seem unrelated, that can kind of get worked with until it's like, oh, actually, what I want is the softness, or the firmness, depending on which side you're coming at it from, right? It's like they meet in the middle, not so they can just hang out in the middle, but so they can transcend it into an experience where there's not different ways of seeing. Like true connection, relaxing into true connection and ways of seeing doesn't really go together. Like one or the other needs to be true, and when the way of seeing is given up, it's like they have an experience of connection there.
Mm. And yeah, I kind of touched on it briefly and then shied away from it very quickly. But part of the inspiration for us and really dovetailing off of that is that this is our present healing as well. It's the dynamics that we experience to different degrees. And that was what felt so powerful and actually quite an active healing process for us through the week. It was profound, actually. It was so lovely. Like the themes that we wanted to bring in were happening in real time. And it seemed to be happening quite quickly. And yeah, I can just share as well. This will be woven into the movie in different situations, but one thing that really is right alongside these other themes of true prayer, letting go of unworthiness, relaxing into the true connection, all of it leading to the true connection is this very practical and present experience of I'm never upset for the reason I think. So as Zach was just saying, like pulling the attention away from the specifics, you'll see Rita get very upset by a coffee table, but it's very clear based on the things that have happened just before that what's actually bothering her, and Sam will see that right away. So yeah, there's some beautiful examples, and I think probably my major inspiration is that that's been a very real experience for me over the last little while, just with seeing something on the screen. So this is so perfect. We get to see it play out on the movie screen today, but seeing something on the screen and feeling like, okay, I'm upset by this, but it feels really out of place somehow. And then just relaxing back into the one true connection, which is ultimately with the spirit inside. Then from there, you can actually see what is really going on. You have an opportunity to get deeper and see if there's even something you can do about what you're upset about, or like the spirit will take it from there with guidance. So that's something that I feel quite passionate about sharing, or just pointing out as this movie comes or plays out. And I also wanted to just share too that because this has been such a present experience for us, and one thing that I'm really wanting to take in for myself or just reinforce in my own mind is that the purpose of these movies, while they're so helpful in just letting the mind relax and see this parable play out to where there's opportunities for healing for us, the purpose of this truly is healing of the mind. So we wanted to just share this beautiful resource that we have that I'm sure most, if not all of you, are already familiar with, but the Instrument for Peace, which is a form that will take you through an upset on the screen and take you down into the different levels of mind, into where you can get in touch with your desire, and then from there experience a real release. So that will, if it hasn't already, will be coming into the chat, just so you can keep that in mind. There will be a lot of trigger points probably during the movie where, wow, I'm like out of breath. Where it feels like, it's an opportunity for us to watch our own thoughts about what we feel is happening on the screen, right, wrong, bring up anger, bring up sadness, whatever it is. But that's really the true purpose of these movies. So I really just wanted to, or we really just wanted to extend that invitation again. Like, we won't necessarily pause the movie for that purpose. It will be more to kind of call out things that are helpful or that the Spirit's drawing our attention to. But at any time, that worksheet can be a very valuable tool. So whether that's during or after the movie, I would just invite you to take advantage of that and to go into the movie with a prayer on your heart for whatever it is the Spirit really wants you to see.
Yeah, feels really beautiful to use the tools in that way that are available. Um, I definitely want to kind of echo what Kristen was saying about this kind of mirror that we're seeing between the main characters in the movie and the way our dynamic seems to play out, because it's a way to see the beliefs underneath our relationship a lot more clearly. Like if it's like, oh, we're not really feeling that connected with each other, and it's like, what's going on? And then we watch the movie and Sam like plays it out right in front of me. It's like, oh, okay, I got it that time. So in that way, it's kind of a beautiful gift. But yeah, I think we've both kind of had several moments where like the core of it for me actually is just taking it off the specifics that are being presented in the moment. And I think for me, you'll see Sam kind of get somewhat overwhelmed and just kind of shut down a number of times in the movie. And that's definitely a pattern that I have. Um, and I do feel like just kind of remembering to take it off the specifics. Like if the situation is getting complicated, then I need a different way of seeing the situation, because a situation given by the Holy Spirit is not going to be complicated. Um, so I think, just kind of playing and not taking the dynamics too seriously as well. It's like, oh, okay, that's playing out again. This is playing out again. Let's not pay too much attention to it and drop into this, or relax into the true prayer, and deepen in it is kind of where both of our inspirations are. Um, and yeah, even just the other day, I think there was a bit of an upset about my snoring.
Yeah.
And it's similar. It's like, Sam has his grievance with the pancakes not being the way that they should be, and there was a grievance with my snoring, but it was kind of an instrumental part actually in how this movie joining kind of came to be. And
It always is, actually. Yeah, like I noticed that if there's something that's upsetting me about Zach, it's usually just an indication that somewhere 6 steps before or something, I've bitten onto something that the ego's dropped into my mind. And so in this particular example, it was that I had some resistance coming into this movie, and I think it was for the very same reason that you'll see Rita has resistance into softening into this relationship. It's just the resistance that has to come up as we come closer to our brother and into this gentleness and joy and defenselessness that are the characteristics of the teachers of God. So yeah, I woke up quite early. I was like, oh, I can't sleep. So I went into the other room and prayed. And what actually the Spirit called to my mind, or he called me into prayer quite swiftly. And then from there, it was just an opportunity for me to see, okay, I'm not actually upset about this. There's a feeling of disconnect with, it seems to be this movie, which again is not actually the core of it. But from there, it was easy for me to find the deeper prayer and the opening, and it's actually just the lived experience of what we're going to be sharing and what you're going to be seeing in this movie, which was beautiful. It was all part of the plan. It actually just really reinforced like this has got to be it, actually. So yeah, when we share that this has kind of been a lived experience for us over the last week, that's an example of that, which yeah.
yeah. So, I feel like, yeah, before we get into the movie, I just want to kind of end the setup with a quote or two from the course, which kind of gives you a different way of looking at this main theme of relaxing into true connection. And this is from Chapter 5, The Guide to Salvation. I think if we look at sort of true connection in the way that the Course talks about it, one way of kind of understanding that is basically seeing the Holy Spirit in your brother. Because there's a lot in the Course about you can't see the Holy Spirit in yourself alone. So I think, yeah, I'll just kind of read a chunk of this section before we start the movie. This is paragraph 3. There are two diametrically opposed ways of seeing your brother. They must both be in your mind because you are the perceiver. They must also be in his because you are perceiving him. See him through the Holy Spirit in his mind, and you will recognize him in yours. What you acknowledge in your brother, you are acknowledging in yourself, and what you share, you strengthen. The voice of the Holy Spirit is weak in you. That is why you must share it. It must be increased in strength before you can hear it. It is impossible to hear it in yourself while it is so weak in your mind. It is not weak in itself, but it is limited by your unwillingness to hear it. If you make the mistake of looking for the Holy Spirit in yourself alone, your thoughts will frighten you, because by adopting the ego's viewpoint, you are undertaking an ego-alien journey with the ego as guide. This is bound to produce fear. You cannot understand yourself alone. This is because you have no meaning apart from your rightful place in the sonship, and the rightful place of the sonship is God. This is your life, your eternity, and yourself. It is of this that the Holy Spirit reminds you. It is this that the Holy Spirit sees. This vision frightens the ego because it is so calm. Peace is the ego's greatest enemy because according to its interpretation of reality, war is the guarantee of its survival. The ego becomes strong in strife. If you believe there is strife, you will react viciously because the idea of danger has entered your mind. The Holy Spirit is as vigilant as the ego to the call of danger, opposing it with his strength, just as the ego welcomes it. The Holy Spirit counters this welcome by welcoming peace. So that's just kind of a bit of grounding of, one, why this relaxing into peace is so strongly opposed by the ego, and two, what metaphysically is kind of really going on when this relaxation into a true connection is happening. It's beyond the concept shared there. It's kind of a lived experience, but this is really all that's happening as we see these characters in this movie kind of sand off their rough edges for each other and come closer together. They're just kind of becoming more and more willing to see the Holy Spirit in the other. So, your thoughts?
Well, just maybe find your prayer for the movie and yeah, enjoy, sink in. We'll pop in from time to time as we do, and yeah, just enjoy.
Great. So, we've got kind of our first little dollop of the movie. We've met Lucy, we've met Sam, we've met Sam's friends, and yeah, it seems like Lucy is naturally inquisitive, just asking a whole lot of questions and getting smarter every day. And in contrast to that, I think you can kind of start to see situations where Sam might look at it or be a little bit rigid, and how he even seems to sort of freeze a little bit when he gets hit with something that he isn't expecting. For instance, on the bus when Lucy was born, he just kind of spins around and gets stuck in that. And you know, he's going to go through a healing there. I think it's kind of telling or interesting when Lucy asks him a question. His first response is, "I'm sorry." Actually, it's like there's a bit of there's again an unworthiness down there that needs to be fleshed up. But um, I think it's kind of interesting in most cases where Lucy asks him a question and then he responds from the heart. It's usually not correct from the way the world perceives it, but there's a connection and a wanting to make Lucy feel heard and understood there. And in some cases, it's not even that he's so much wrong. Like the why are men bald? Well, sometimes people just have more of their face on their head, and it makes them like that's not wrong, but it's just kind of not how the world would explain that sort of thing. So you can sort of start to see it's not even really that he's that unintelligent. Actually, he just kind of has a different way of looking at certain things. So that's kind of a good starting point for the healing that's about to unfold.
Yeah, it's a perfect foundation because you can see, like Zach was saying, Lucy seems to just be getting kind of more and more inquisitive and opening up more and more and more and like kind of um hungry for more. And Sam is pretty set in his ways, so it kind of already sets up where you can maybe even start to see how the movie will unfold. It's going to things are going to start to shift based on this, basically. Lucy will need to expand, and he will need to expand too, but it's going to be in a different direction. So the form is going to seem to shift, and the course tells us in the development of trust that that sometimes the change in external circumstances is needed for you to develop this trust, and that these changes are always helpful. So that's just a great thing to keep in mind as we're going into the movie too. And one other thing, I mean, I totally love his friends. I think they're just so lovely and heartfelt and lighthearted and playful. So they're just this note of joy through the whole movie. And Annie as well. We've met Annie, who is going to be just a major support through the whole movie as well, and kind of a quiet support, intentionally and unintentionally. You'll see a little bit more of that play out further down the movie, but she's just this very loving presence in their lives, in Sam and Lucy's lives. And yeah, I think it's just worth calling her out because yeah, Sam needs a support system. And you'll also see later on in the movie how he calls on her quite frequently and how that's actually a huge strength. So yeah, just wanted to mention Annie there as well before we keep going.
Okay, so we can continue on. Ooh, so that's maybe the first inkling that there's a bit of expansion that needs to happen. It seems like, Sam and Lucy have this beautiful connection and they really love each other, but yeah, there's something about the current arrangement or current situation that really isn't working for either of them, actually. It's, when there's a little bit of a change, then Sam kind of freezes up and shuts down and keeps on repeating, uh, what he's trying to communicate, and then Lucy's feeling all guilty about being smarter than his dad's or her dad. So it's just kind of a sign that we can kind of kick it into the next stage of the movie in a certain sense.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting too that everything Sam does seems to be a collaboration, like when he's out buying shoes with his buddies and like and actually it's funny, the salesman in that scene is the same actor as Data from Star Trek, who's this very, very precise, like very direct communication kind of character. So I thought that was kind of sparkly as we saw that. But back to the collaboration idea, that's something that we're going to see throughout the movie, and that's one of his gifts for Rita as well, who you'll see she just tries to manage her own problems, but there's something really beautiful. Sam has to ask for help for everything or for most things, and that actually just facilitates this heart connection with many people. So yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of sort of starting to see the beginning of Sam can't actually handle it alone. So he asks everyone for help. Even during the science fair, kind of earlier on where Lucy was standing up, it just kind of highlights like she's inquisitive, she wants more, and Sam can't really keep up. Um, that being said, we also, while we're kind of seeing this play out and move in this direction, we also see kind of Sam's intuitive nature come to the surface again and again, in certain times, like when he was arrested for talking to that hooker. Um, he sort of intuitively gets like Lucy didn't brush her teeth, because didn't sound like her teeth were brushed, and that's not something you can get to analytically, but it's clear that he does care, and in that sense he is a good father. Like he just kind of intuitively picks up on some of these things. And then another example of that is when he was trying to answer what the school principal was trying to tell him about, our concern is what happens when Lucy turns 8. And his response was, well, John wanted to try new things and it wasn't Yoko's fault. It's kind of like, it's not really how someone with a bit more intellect would answer that question, but it was just kind of his way of processing what he was being told. And there is kind of like a kernel of truth you can get to if you kind of pay more attention to the feeling of the words than the actual words themselves. It's really kind of beautiful to watch there. So yeah, I think we're gonna kind of see this type of thing play out again with Sam shortly, when he has a birthday party for Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be kind of like the pancakes situation that you've just seen, but magnified times 1,000, because of the situation he finds himself in, where he really does freeze up and just kind of give up. And I think the other thing that is kind of beautiful about this movie for us is, for myself, actually, when I see Sam freeze up like we just saw with his pancake issues, it's like I can see that pattern in myself as well, like this desire to just kind of freeze up and push things away out of this underlying fear that you'll get to kind of see be exposed in Sam's character more and more. So, yeah, I think it's kind of a beautiful way of looking at the movie. Like again, the healing is right in front of us as we watch this movie so that we can heal it and keep on going.
Just have one last thought too, and that's that this situation with where you saw Lucy giving this report at school, and then there's this other young boy, Connor, who's Lucy's friend, and the reflection from Lucy's father and Connor's father are very different. So this is the beginning of more of those contrast experiences that we're going to see with Sam and Rita. That's kind of like the fast-paced, get it done, achiever, what's wrong with you kind of mentality versus this very heart-based connection, which is, well, a connection, I guess you could say. But Sam really just showing up there to be in full support of Lucy and yeah, just wanting to be the wind underneath her wings. Great. So there's Rita. I don't know that there's too much to say. I feel like her dynamics just are right there at the surface. Although that is a beautiful demonstration of I'm never upset for the reason I think. You can see there's a lot of distraction happening for her with she can't even really sit still with Sam because she feels like that's not important enough for her mind. But one thing is quite clear, and that's that she's quite upset about not having a connection with her son. And then it escalates to the coffee table and Patricia and all of this stuff. But that's just how it works until we trace it back and we see that the upsets aren't about the specifics. And in fact, it's ultimately not even about her son. But so she won't take it back now. But through the course of the movie, we will see her soften into this relationship with him again. And yeah, I don't know that there's too much except that it's it's fun to see here with Sam's dynamics and Rita's dynamics. You can just see that in terms of the self-concept, there's going to be just fireworks when the two of them start working together in a closer way. Yeah, I think
You
that's
can also see that Sam is kind of very clued in to Rita's kind of wanting to connect to her son as well in an intuitive way. Like he's the one who reminds her, "Oh, your son is online too," and then right before we paused, just kind of talking to her about her son, like what's really on her mind, instead of saying anything about the coffee table or whatever. So there is kind of yeah, the players are set. Let's kind of watch how they come together and um, smooth each other out. Okay, so we're at the point where now the relationship between the two of them can really start kicking into high gear. And I feel like the most touching part of this whole piece of it for me was just that it's almost like it couldn't have been another way. Rita getting kind of forced into the situation where she agrees to work with Sam for free, all because Sam just really isn't into the people pleasing at all. I mean, he doesn't really know another way of being. So where someone else might have kind of picked up on some of the cues that she was putting down, like when they met in the evening and Sam was asking, like, have you talked to your friend who handles these kinds of cases? And she was giving these kind of subtle cues like, oh, actually, I have and she doesn't actually want to say, like, I don't want to talk to you right now. But she's like trying her best to get rid of him, basically. And Sam just kind of stares at her like, yeah, but what about your friend? And so in this kind of case, his directness and lack of interest, or maybe even just lack of awareness of people pleasing as a concept, it kind of forces Rita to, yeah, I mean, her healing is used in the sense that she doesn't want to say, like, no, I don't want to deal with it. So she's kind of forced into a situation where they can start collaborating and healing together. I think the other thing that is kind of beautiful is just along with the directness and the no people pleasing, because Sam doesn't really have people pleasing in his mind. It's just very easy for him to be very in tune with what he wants, one, and just willing to speak to it in the moment, in every moment, which is a large part of why the healing relationship works so well. Like uh, Rita has a lot of sort of thoughts about the way things should be and what she wants. And then if you pair that with someone who just speaks his mind in every moment, healing is going to happen, which certainly seems to be the case for us too. Like, but I need to speak my mind is really the lesson for me, or else it just doesn't work. And you can see that even before this scene where Rita agrees to be his lawyer, when Sam is at his job and is just very clear, like, I don't want something else. I want to make coffee. Like he always kind of speaks exactly what he wants, which is how the healing can come in.
Hmm.
I don't know if you had any other thoughts, but
Just one, I think it's beautiful. Just another demonstration of Sam just wanting to be truly helpful or just seeing the need in the moment. He realizes that there's some kind of conflict happening in Rita's office with the two people there who neither of them, funny reflection for Rita, neither of them want custody of their son. But the woman starts crying and immediately Sam just wants to go and help. So I just think that speaks to such a beautiful innocence. Like he's just showing up in the moment, and wherever the strongest need is, he just naturally is magnetized towards it. Great. Well, I like these scenes because this is Rita starting to open up a little bit, like starting to really soften and play with Sam, actually. So for the last little while, it's been kind of slow. Like she's still kind of got this hard shell, but now you can see her really starting to crack and smile along with him and even opening up about some of the things she believes about her son. Like, no, he doesn't want to play with me. But even that I feel is really lovely because it's like they turn into two little kids in a sandbox or something. Like underneath all of the like the distractions and the trappings of adulthood that she's kind of built around herself, there's this deeper hurt that when it comes out, it's like they're actually able to meet in this place of vulnerability. Actually, he doesn't want to play with me. Yes, he does. So, yeah, I just really enjoy watching her play. And that's actually part of what I've discovered or we've discovered in kind of our dynamics as they start to soften when there's this meeting place. There's just this kind of bubbling, playful joy that emerges. That's quite sweet.
yeah, you can kind of see it. It's like looking for a feeling together rather than like an investment in any of the specifics that they're working toward. And it's beautiful because that was kind of a long chunk without any pausing, but you can see the kind of feeling that they're after when Sam and his friends were huddled around the answering machine. I thought that was quite a beautiful scene, actually, because they were all trying to kind of just feel into the feeling of what they wanted Sam's answering machine message to sound like together. It was kind of like, oh, maybe you should sound more excited. Maybe you should sound more like a normal person. Maybe you should sound this way or that way. And it was kind of a collaboration. And when they were all done, they got the reflection like, oh, that was really from the heart. That was really touching. And so, in some way, Sam's way of playing with his friends is kind of what now he and Rita are kind of looking for together, despite the seeming importance of what they're coming together for. It's like this is what they're softening into so that they can kind of relax into this true connection place.
Yeah, I was thinking too a little bit about the courtroom scenes that we've been seeing, and it's gonna continue, of course, and come to a head in the next few scenes, but the words on my mind were justice system. Like that's ultimately in the worldly sense what it's meant for, whether or not it's actually played out that way in what we see in the world. But I think it's very helpful to notice that it seems like there's sides and Sam's side and the other side, and they're kind of grilling one another and oh, you made her cry and all that stuff. Oh, we got lucky. You know, like there's this air of competition. But I think what I've seen in the coming scenes especially is that there is a shift called for in the form, and it's for everyone's expansion. For Lucy, for Sam, Rita's experiencing her expansion, and then kind of rippling out Annie, who's never been out of the house in however many years, Willie, by extension, Rita's son. So there's something very beautiful happening with these courtroom scenes. They're just like a mind watcher, at least in my mind, where it's like, oh, I really want Sam to win. He's got to get his daughter back. But it's just really helpful to see we don't really know what the spirit's plan is. And ultimately, I think the point of all of it is we all just want to hear what the guidance is. And then when the purpose is out front for healing or for expansion, then the form can really look however it looks. So that could just be something that I've kept in mind for these next few scenes, but certainly fodder for an instrument for peace or something like that if there's things coming up.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's kind of beautiful about these last few scenes is just it's it's a very sort of specific example or series of examples of how, Sam, despite the world thinking he's not really that intelligent, it's very clear actually that he's intelligent in the ways that matter and maybe not even that different from what what the world would call intelligent in some very specific narrow ways. Because one thing that I found really beautiful about this last scene was, he doesn't really understand manipulation. It's not really something that you want to understand, but he, when Rita asks him, "Do you understand the concept of like manipulating the truth?" He's like, "Nope, I don't know." But then, even after saying that, he demonstrates that he's able to take what's happening in front of him and apply it to what he's been told. So he sort of successfully kind of gets at the fact that Rita may not be being 100% honest when she shares like, "No, I do want to play with him," and Sam immediately goes, "Oh, that's a tweak. Like that's what you were trying to explain to me." So it's really kind of beautiful in that he may not really understand the concepts as kind of like an abstract thing, but he's really very good at taking what he sees in front of him and applying it to what he's been shown or what he's been taught, which is really all that the Holy Spirit wants us to be good at. In a certain sense, it's like, no, I just want you to be good at seeing the Holy Spirit everywhere, listening to me, following based on this feeling of connection and kindness, which Sam just kind of demonstrated that he's very good at. And then, the other thing that we see again is that he's not going to compromise on that. He's not going to hold back on what he feels is important, from this perspective of being connected. And I think the main way that you see that in these last few scenes is him just kind of being very direct with Rita when he says like, "Oh, I'm screwed if you think what they think in terms of, oh, Sam can't balance a checkbook, Sam can't do math. And, Rita kind of tries to deflect that a little bit. And then he goes, it matters to me. It matters to me what you think, or this really isn't going to work at all, which I felt like was a very powerful scene.
Yeah, and that directness too, with Sam just really kind of calling her out right in the middle of the lunch line and all of that. It facilitates this faster opening for Rita. I know one thing that I've experienced in our dynamics is that when these judgments or like some kind of rush energy or like kind of the fast-paced lawyer kind of dynamic starts showing itself, there's a soft place to land because Sam doesn't judge what's happening. Like he can handle when Rita says, I went out and got the Raptor scooter and da da da. All he says is like focusing on the connection, like, no, he does want to play with you. So there's something really beautiful about that too, where Rita is starting to actually let these things that are heavy on her heart start to come to the surface. And that's just going to continue until there's this much bigger pop towards the end of the movie. But I just really loved that with Sam pointing it out, like, no, it matters to me. It's kind of like a wake-up call for Rita of like, whether she articulates it or not, you can start to see she lets Sam into her home and now is also letting him into her mind a bit more.
Yeah, and on the flip side, I think these last few scenes, Rita really kind of brings the, sometimes you just kind of need to step up and be firm, or step up and be really clear and precise, even when it's difficult for you. And this happened even in the last scene we saw where, Sam's kind of like, well, I kind of feel like maybe it's not the best idea, if it's okay with you, to for Lucy to go into the foster care, and Rita's like, no, you gotta, like, this is important. And so, um, as with the movie, I can kind of see the value in our relationship as well, where when I'm kind of maybe a bit too spacey, or a little bit too like, it's all okay, whatever. It's like, no, there are things where the Holy Spirit is calling me to be like, no, this is what it is. And Kristen can kind of bring that out in me a little bit more. So it just kind of feels like this is kind of the culmination of maybe the first phase of their relationship, where they kind of strengthen each other where the other is weak. And you're going to see in the next scene, there's going to be a bit of a change in that relationship. But it's kind of like, okay, job well done. In a certain sense, they've gotten to a certain point.
Yeah, moving into more expansion. Okay. So I just want to read this part from the development of trust again that's been referenced a few times so far because I think it's just so applicable here. Yeah. First, they must go through what might be called a period of undoing. This need not be painful, but it usually is so experienced. It seems as if things are being taken away, and it is rarely understood initially that their lack of value is merely being recognized. How can lack of value be perceived unless the perceiver is in a position where he must see things in a different light? He is not yet at a point at which he can make the shift entirely internally, and so the plan will sometimes call for changes in what seem to be external circumstances. These changes are always helpful. When the teacher of God has learned that much, he goes on to the second stage. So the lack of value that's or that he's being invited to see now is not in Lucy or in their relationship, but just the form of how things have been. And you could see that through the whole beginning of the movie where certain things would trigger Lucy and you'd see her have this kind of reaction of either disappointment, they can't go to a different restaurant, or with the experiences with Connor, with her friend, where there's so much persecution that seems to be coming towards her. Like there's some kind of shift needed for Lucy to continue expanding. And ultimately, I mean, what the shift that you just saw in Sam, or that we just saw in Sam, was that he does think Lucy deserves everything. That's where it's coming from for him. Like it's just coming from this love that he has for her, for their relationship. The value that he sees there is greater than the form. So, yeah, I just think that that's so relevant.
Yeah, it's beautiful because I think, if we're watching this movie from a certain lens, like the movie kind of sets up like, oh, the plaintiff, the guy who's asking all the aggressive questions in the courtroom, he's the bad guy, and Sam and Lucy are the good guys. Like we want them to win, we want the plaintiff to lose. But I feel like it's just important to remember, like everyone's doing the best they can based on what they believe. And we even kind of got a chance to see a little bit inside what the plaintiff was thinking, when he was saying, like, yeah, it's easy for you, like it's just an award on your wall, but I see the child come back and I'm a little sensitive about this whole issue, is the word he used. So in that sense, he's just kind of doing what he believes is right. Lucy and Sam and Rita are doing what they believe is right, and this is the result. And there is a way of seeing all of this that does not make anyone a villain, basically. Like it can all be seen as truly helpful. Which and you can sort of see, we'll continue to pause it throughout the movie and point out the ways that this kind of change in form allows Sam and Lucy to continue to expand. So
And Rita and everyone else, like, of course, with the way that the miracle works, we all know and have experienced that. Like, it just ripples out to everything. So everything up until now has served. Like, you even heard Annie say, like, I know that you guys think that Lucy is as smart as she is despite Sam, but it's actually because of him. Like, all of these relationships and circumstances with them, like, seemingly fighting back and all of that, that's really served to bring them up to this point. And now it's time for something new.
beautiful. So we're kind of getting a little bit deeper into what's going on for each of them now. And I feel like I'd actually like to lead off with a quote from the course real quick. This is from The Dynamics of the Ego. And the 8th paragraph says, you must recognize that the last thing the ego wishes you to realize is that you are afraid of it. For if the ego could give rise to fear, it would diminish your independence and weaken your power. Yet, its one claim to your allegiance is that it can give power to you. Without this belief, you would not listen to it at all. How then can its existence continue if you realize that by accepting it, you are belittling yourself and depriving yourself of power? The ego can and does allow you to regard yourself as supercilious, unloving, lighthearted, distant, emotionally shallow, callous, uninvolved, and even desperate, but not really afraid. Minimizing fear, but not its undoing, is the ego's constant effort, and indeed a skill at which it is very ingenious. How can it preach separation without upholding it through fear? And would you listen to it if you recognized this is what it's doing? So it's really beautiful because I think both Sam and Rita during this scene kind of realized, in a certain sense, it's not really about the coffee table. It's not really about even so much her issues with her husband or her son. And then on the flip side, Sam realizes it's not really about him feeling like he tries and tries and tries and doesn't really get there, or that Lucy doesn't really need him anymore. Those are all examples of the specifics. What they're really guarding against is that experience they had with each other right there. That's where the true connection is. And that's, in some sense, the distractions that they kind of manufacture to stop them from having that experience with each other of true connection. Another spot in the Course says, present connection is your real dread. It's not really about the justifications that you can come up with, or these labels that you make for yourself or the other, whether it's, oh, I'm supercilious, or I'm too lighthearted, or I'm too callous, or I'm too uninvolved. Like, that's not it. It's the fear. It's the fear of intimacy that,
not physical intimacy so much as the vulnerability and getting down to that belief in unworthiness that's there for all of us until it's not.
yeah. So you can kind of see, I think, from this point onward, they, because they were able to have that experience of like really getting down deep and being real with each other, having that experience, Rita's going to soften significantly from here on out.
More so.
And, Sam is going to do whatever it takes from here on out. Like, okay, she's part of this supportive relationship for me. So he's going to start to take initiative, actually, and sort of, yeah, just whatever is needed to get Lucy back. He's like all in at this moment. So yeah, I think you'll start to see that in these next few scenes, all kind of allowed to come up because of their willingness to have this experience of true connection with each other. And like, both of them really are coming at it from a place of like, I don't know what's needed, really. Like, I can't figure it out. But the beauty is they don't really need to figure it out. They just need to join in this prayer together.
Yeah, and continue to, I mean, we saw Sam go through a very visible kind of dismantling with his daughter going away and the whole courtroom stuff and all of that stuff coming up for him. But we just heard Rita as well with her expression session before she entered Sam's room. Everything's gone. I've lost my practice. Like the dismantling has been happening for her as well. And so, yeah, this is the point at which, kind of the core belief there has been reached in their lives. Their minds start opening up to something far more vibrant from here on out.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of a really beautiful moment as well, because it just kind of highlights again that Sam, even though he isn't really super clear all the time with the specifics, he really values the connection that he has with Lucy, and Lucy can actually feel that. Like, you can almost kind of see the process of forgiveness in Lucy's mind. It's not really about Sam explaining what he did and kind of making amends at a form level. It's more like Sam's just kind of reminding Lucy in that moment, like, actually, the connection is the most important thing to me. Will you join me here? And in some ways, that's like a more direct path to forgiveness than maybe like, oh, okay, I see, like engaging with the specifics, because Sam can't engage with the specifics so much. So I thought that was kind of beautiful to see. And I actually have seen it more than once in our relationship as well, where it's like at a certain point you can't really get a resolution where the specific, like, okay, whose fault is it? Are we are we going to, figure it out at that level, or are we just going to, okay, I just remembered that there's a love there and a shared purpose, and maybe that's more important than what happened.
Mm.
I I don't know if we wanted to just share a bit of a course quote, or
Yeah, I think so. I was just kind of pausing for a moment to see if it would. It's actually meant for the last pause there, but it feels really relevant for this too, and kind of piggybacking on what Zach was just sharing. And it brings in that theme again of I am never upset for the reason I think, which you just saw play out with Sam and Lucy. Um, but kind of what Zach was sharing in the first or in the most recent pause, where the ego wants you to perceive all of these things about yourself. This one kind of brings it around to the miracle. And this one is from Shadows of the Past. And it says in paragraph 6, the ego seeks to resolve its problems not at their source, but where they were not made. And thus it seeks to guarantee there will be no solution. The Holy Spirit wants only to make his resolutions complete and perfect. And so he seeks and finds the source of problems where it is, and there undoes it. And with each step in his undoing is the separation more and more undone, and union brought closer. He's not at all confused by any reasons for separation. All he perceives in separation is that it must be undone. Let him uncover the hidden spark of beauty in your relationships and show it to you. Its loveliness will so attract you that you will be unwilling ever to lose sight of it again. And you will let this spark transform the relationship so you can see it more and more. For you will want it more and more and become increasingly unwilling to let it be hidden from you. And you will learn to seek for and establish the conditions in which this beauty can be seen. And then actually there's this really beautiful line, which I feel like probably most of us have heard, but it's right from the beginning of that section in paragraph 1 where it says, to forgive is merely to remember only the loving thoughts you gave in the past and those that were given you. All the rest must be forgotten. I don't know if I have more on that. I just really liked it. I felt like it summed up beautifully the pulling away from the specifics and relaxing into the deeper prayer where the true connection can actually come through. Oh, very sweet. Just think it's so beautiful in that last scene. You can see how clearly and how, at least in this moment, completely Rita's priorities have shifted from what they were before, to now just valuing the connection. And even like you can see throughout the movie how Sam will have his idiosyncrasies with like the things that he says, and she'll kind of like slowly start to smile and open up. And now she actually just joins him in the connection. So
like,
yeah,
yeah, my George was my favorite Beatle.
yeah,
That's all he said, all she says in response to that.
yeah. I think it's beautiful too in these last few scenes we're gonna see Sam. He doesn't change in the sense that he just continues to come with this open, giving heart. And in this, like the last decision that they have in court is whether or not Lucy will be adopted by this other family that she's been living with. And, Sam's really still trying to push for adoption and stuff. And even with all of that stuff happening, he still shows up, even with this family that's fostering Lucy. Like he still just shows up with this attitude of being truly helpful, like, oh, if you sometimes rub her belly, give her half of an IHOP corn muffin or corn cake. So that we're gonna see play out again, but in a way that like there's a different witness, like the way that the Laura Dern character, Randy is her name, where she's like, no, no, we got it, we got it. Like she's really actually trying to push Sam out of the picture because she thinks, you'll hear it in the next few scenes, she thinks that she can offer something to Lucy that Sam can't. And that may be true in one sense because Lucy does need this relationship to keep expanding, and so does Sam for that matter. It kind of frees him up from um, some responsibilities that weren't necessarily helping him with Lucy. But yeah, this beautiful scene with Randy and Sam is just gonna reflect a shift in the witnesses. So yeah, the movie has a sweet, uplifting ending, and yeah, just enjoy it.
We'll see you guys on the flip side. Okay, beautiful. So, yeah, just I have a lot of gratitude for each and every one of you joining us for this beautiful relationship movie. I feel like it was lovely just kind of watching it with you and seeing how the relationship started from two people with two very different views of the world, and then as they both kind of got clear about what they wanted and what their purpose was for the relationship, you can kind of see the rough edges or the bits where they don't see the same way about certain things. It just kind of all gets washed, and then they can actually join in that shared experience. So
Hmm.
yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week
Hmm.
for another movie. Thank you.